Hi everyone, Olivia Reiner here for Packers News, joined by my good friend, the very enthusiastic Ryan Wood.
Yes.
Happy to have you here, Ryan. Guys,
it's not cold at all here. It's not cold
It's just
at
a little
all.
breezy. The flags over here, as usual, are just kind of going crazy. The American flags here in the end zone. If you know, you know. They tend to move around. Yeah. So maybe you'll hear some flags blowing in the background. Guys, thank you for joining us. We always appreciate hearing from you over on Facebook. Get in the chat, ask your questions, get whatever you have on your chest off of it. This is what we're here for. We're here to be your therapist. No, we're not really here to be your therapist, but we're here to be...
Help us help you.
Yes, we're here to answer your
us
questions.
help you.
We are also over on Periscope and YouTube, so wherever you're watching us, hello. So let's just get right to the chase, especially as it comes to the injury report that came out not too long ago. Davante Adams, once again, did not practice. He was spotted over on the sideline doing some rehabbing stuff. He was on the recumbent bike for a little while during the open portion of practice to the media. So at this point, is it safe to say Davante Adams will not be active for the game on Sunday?
Safe's a strong word. You got a little Zapruder film today of him riding the stationary bike, and all indications are that Davante Adams would really, really, really like to play. I just don't see how it's going to happen. So, and on top of that, this injury is an injury that it's going to linger if the more that he doesn't rest. I mean, it's really no way to make a turf toe better other than to rest. So I just don't see how it's, I mean, the prudent thing to do seems like to take this week off. But, you know, I feel like I was standing here about 2 years ago exactly, the 2017 season, when Davante Adams got leveled by Danny Trevathan on a short week Thursday night game against the Bears, and we were all saying there's absolutely zero chance this guy's going to be able to play. Spent the night in the hospital that night, and almost miraculously he played the next week at Dallas. So we've seen it before. It's hard to imagine, but we've seen it before.
In addition to Davante Adams, Jamal Williams did not practice today. He was seen doing some light stretching while the Packers were stretching today at practice. So, again, similar situation. Jamal Williams likely to not play. The obvious next man up is Dexter Williams, who has not been active or dressed for a single game so far this season. How much faith should the Packers put in Dexter Williams to be able to fill in some of those reps that, take some of the load off of Aaron Jones this upcoming Sunday?
Well, faith is the word. There's faith, there's trust. They can't really trust because he's a rookie, he hasn't played yet. Really, being inactive the first 4 weeks, he's been on scout team. So as far as trust, he hasn't had a chance to really develop much trust. They're going to have no choice other than to put their faith in him this week. Talking with Aaron Jones today, mentioned how in high school he would play two ways and never came off the field, and so it's kind of like that, except, the obvious that this isn't high school, it's the NFL, and they hit really hard at this level. So it's hard to imagine that they would go one halfback the entire game, especially with a guy like Aaron Jones that they've got to preserve over the course of the season. There's two halfbacks on the roster, so Dexter Williams, it looks like he's going to play.
No choice but to step up.
Yeah.
Some good news for the Packers. Brian Bulaga practiced yesterday. He was limited, but we got to see him today in shoulder pads. I would think, and Tom Silverstein said this yesterday, that if Bulaga were to practice in pads today, that he should be good for Sunday.
Yes.
How much faith do you have that Bulaga will be healthy and ready to go on Sunday?
Yes. Thursday's always the threshold. When they're in pads, there's a really good chance that they're going to play. The only thing that would prevent that is if there's an unforeseen setback in the next 2 days, but that's unlikely. I think that the Packers definitely dodged an issue here with Brian Bulaga's shoulder, and it looks like he'll be all right.
All right, guys. I am working on pulling up your questions here, but I'm having a hard time, unfortunately, on my phone.
I hate technology.
Technology's hard. Let's talk about technology and how complicated.
Is just so stubborn.
Especially when you're trying to do it from your phone. Something always seems to go wrong. So hopefully you
technology and live video too. It's always great.
It's never easy, but hopefully you guys can see us. I'm seeing a black screen right now on our live stream, so hopefully you're not seeing a black screen. So I will continue to see if I can troubleshoot this. But for now, we'll keep chatting a little bit about practice today and everything that we saw, anything interesting that might have popped up. So again, So we discussed some of the injuries already. Another couple of injuries that we haven't discussed yet today or yesterday was Kevin King and Tony Brown, cornerbacks, are both out, have both been sidelined since the game against the Eagles on Sunday. How confident are you that some of the depth guys in the cornerbacks room, like Shandon Sullivan, Kadar Holman, are ready to step up and fill in some of those minutes?
Well, again, it's kind of similar to Dexter Williams. We haven't seen it yet. So, if it said Thursday's the threshold, those guys didn't play or didn't participate today. Not looking good for either of them. The big one that I found really interesting today was Zadarius Smith saying the Packers medical staff really didn't want him playing last week against the Eagles. I mean, Zadarius Smith was basically shut out, no tackles, no sacks after the knee injury. He nursed that knee on the short week. He said that no excuses, but the medical staff really didn't want him to play, but he wasn't going to. He just wasn't going to listen. He wasn't going to take no for an answer. He said that the knee happened on the very last play of the Broncos win. If you remember, Zadarius Smith ended that game with a sack. And if you watch the play, which I did after he mentioned this, he said that it was kind of a wraparound sack, and Joe Flacco kind of fell on Zadarius Smith's left leg and kind of twisted his knee a little bit. He actually said that he didn't feel the pain until the next morning. So not, could have been a lot worse, obviously. But it's one of those things, he had the ankle week 2. He had the knee last week. He said that he's 99.9% healthy this week. But the reality is both him and Preston Smith have been playing a lot of snaps. Mm-hmm. And it'll be interesting to see if they kind of regress to the mean, if they taper that off with more snaps for Rashawn Gary, for Kyler Fackrell. Maybe, unlikely, but maybe Tim Williams, who was recently acquired, or if they still go with 85 to 90% snaps for those two.
If you're Mike Pettin, how do you balance Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, their enthusiasm with the reality of knowing that this is a long season and you've got to preserve these guys? He's got some rookies. He's got, namely, Rashawn Gary, a rookie that maybe isn't quite there yet where he wants to be, where he's giving him more and more snaps. We've seen Rashawn Gary's load increase over the last couple of weeks, but how do you balance that? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, well, it does help that they're young. Zadarius Smith, one of them turned 27 last month and the other turns 27 next month. Off the top of my head, I can't remember which, but they're basically identical age within 2 months and at that 27 mark. So they're young, but yeah, you got to kind of keep guys from doing too much in a way, kind of keep guys from being the own worst enemy of their own bodies, so to speak. So I would think that over the course, Preston Smith had a great answer for it too today. He said, the answer, play fewer snaps, because the Packers defense played a ton of snaps, not just because of the short week, but they played a ton of snaps against Denver. Then they played a lot of snaps against Philadelphia. So Preston Smith's like, just get off the field and play fewer snaps, which helps, but we're still talking about ratios and percentages, which they've been playing high percentages, so we'll have to see.
Yes. All right, guys, we are good to go in the comment section. I'm here. I see you. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Thank you for your patience. Let's start with Nolan. He wants to know a little bit more about the new outside linebacker, Tim Williams, from the Baltimore Ravens, claimed off of waivers. Originally a third-round pick from Alabama. What does Williams bring? What could he bring to this Packers defense now that the outside linebackers room is the deepest it's been this season?
It's very much an open-ended question. Mike Pettin said today that Tim Williams is going to start on special teams, and if there's a niche role for him to work his way into the defense, then great. When they claimed him, my first thought was, Tim Williams, I remember that name. Where do I remember that name from? Oh, yeah, Alabama. So, he was you go back and look at Tim Williams in Alabama, he was very, very productive as a junior and senior, top 5 in both years in the SEC in sacks. He's kind of an athletic type edge rusher. The problem, of course, is that that's where you remember him from. He's a third-round pick. In the last 3 years, he's done very little. I think 2 sacks in 19 games. So there's a reason, why the Baltimore Ravens released a third-round pick before his rookie deal was up. He hadn't done anything to stay on the team. So you want to talk about some redemption. I mean, Tim Williams is here to redeem himself. He's here to prove that what he showed in college, that athletic potential, that ability to get after the quarterback, those are things that he can bring to this level of the NFL. And Zadarius Smith, who was a teammate of Tim Williams, we know Milt Hendrickson, the longtime Ravens scout, is now in the front office here in Green Bay, so he knew Tim Williams. But Zadarius Smith, he was a teammate, and he said, Tim Williams is legit. Like he thinks that he can do some things here in Green Bay. We'll have to see. They're going to work himself up to that, but. He's a high potential prospect, but the key word is prospect.
Clearly they see something in him, and perhaps they see the ability to turn it around for him and see if they can get something out of his career at this point. So we'll move on to Tim now, who wants to know about Oren Burks and where he is in his recovery right now. He's back in practice, and he practiced in pads today, if I'm not mistaken. So the timeline, we don't know exactly what it is yet. Mike Pettin said today that he's getting closer. So when should Packers fans expect to see Oren Burks on the field, and in what capacity will he be present?
That second part is the key, because, what I took from Mike Pettin is that maybe Oren Burks plays some special teams this week, maybe, but it's real far-fetched to think he'd play any defense. And that's more, I kind of thought before talking to Mike Pettin that Oren Burks probably wouldn't play at all this week, so I'd still maybe lean toward that, but there's a chance that he gets in on teams. With him, it's just going to be all about how that shoulder, pectoral region feels, because as a linebacker, you can't really avoid using that. So it's a pain threshold. It's strengthening. He's got the harness. That's what's going to really dictate how many snaps he gets defensively.
Alton wants to know how Montravius Adams is doing. He was out with a shoulder injury for a little while. They didn't have him in the game last week. It looks like he's doing better. He's back in practice, in pads today. I'm assuming that he'll be ready to go, but I don't think we've gotten the for sure that he's good to go. He hasn't been on the injury report.
Yeah, so Tom Silverstein, our colleague, caught up with Montravius Adams today and said that it was a dislocated shoulder, which is why he was out. So first of all, ow, that doesn't sound fun. Secondly, that shoulder, how many snaps can he play? I mean, there's playing, and then there's playing a lot of snaps. When you're in the trenches with that shoulder, it'll be interesting to see how many snaps they play him. I do think, the fact he practiced today, he's probably going to be good to go for Sunday. But that's the thing to watch, is how many snaps he's able to kind of endure on that shoulder.
I think they'll be happy. At least the Packers defensive front will be happy to have him back in any capacity. Dean Lowry, Kenny Clark have been playing a lot of snaps. This entire season.
Too many snaps, because those guys, you want to keep those guys fresh, and not just because Kenny Clark and Dean Lowry, but we're talking big guys in the trenches in general. That's a pounding position. It's hard when they don't leave the field to keep them fresh. So. And that's when they're at their best.
Mike Pettin today spoke a little bit about the Packers' run defense and what he thought was missing from them in the last game against the Eagles. And he said it really just came down to the basics, the fundamentals. What needs to change, and how much of that is dependent on these guys being healthy and fresh and just not super tired and run down, as they've been taking a lot of snaps recently.
The buzzword this week has been gap integrity, and the Packers defense very much feels like it's more what they didn't do than what the Eagles did. I mean, not that they're taking any credit away verbally with, give Philly their credit is what they're saying, but the vibe, the feeling is really that they left a lot on the field, and they made a lot of mistakes on that defensive front, really everybody. In terms of maintaining gap integrity and not taking the right gap. Matt LaFleur said that earlier this week himself. I still wonder how much of that is, when you get a defensive philosophy of pin your ears back and just get after the quarterback at all costs and with the urgency that they showed the first 3 games, how much does that affect your gap integrity, I think, is a fair question. But they've got to find that balance, and Preston Smith said today they've got to be as crisp with their execution against rushing, the run defense as they are rushing the passer.
Mike wants to know, how can Packers rookie Kingsley Keke impact the run defense at all? If you haven't seen it, Tom Silverstein wrote a piece over on PackersNews.com all about Keke and what he could potentially bring to the defensive front this upcoming Sunday and just going forward. What do you think of what he can bring? Especially, I mean, at the very least, he's another body that they can put in there. But, you know, what else? What other big benefits do you see from him?
Low leverage guy, which helps against the run. You know, a guy, not to compare him to Mike Daniels, but Mike Daniels had the same stylistic type play where he was low leverage and got under your pads and those sort of things. Again, that helps with the run. I think right now he's mostly another body. I mean, I think this defense is really excited to get Montravius Adams back, and whatever they get from Kingsley Keke is kind of an added bonus.
All right. I think that is just about everything we've got from you guys. Thank you for all of your questions. We appreciate it. Kevin wants to know if Ryan will ever smile, though. Ryan, you got a smile in you?
The Mets fired Mickey Callaway today, so here you go.
Ryan is in the best mood he's ever been in.
I told Olivia literally earlier, this is probably the happiest you'll ever see me. Not that I'm kind of a crummy person to root for someone to lose their job. I'm sorry, but yeah, I'm in a good mood today. It's hard to tell, but I am.
All right. Well, hopefully there's a brighter future ahead for the Mets.
For the Mets, yeah.
But anyway, that'll do it for us, guys. Thank you for
our
joining us.
Live chat.
Yes. This is not a Mets chat. We're not here to talk about the Mets. If you'd like to talk to Ryan about the Mets, you can find him offline.
Oh, I will definitely talk to you about the Mets.
I'm sure he would absolutely love that. Guys, we will be back tomorrow live from here on Friday, the last day before the Packers head out to Dallas to take on the Dallas Cowboys. It'll be a fun one. I'm assuming I'll be joined by Jim Ozarski, so if that is any incentive for you to come in return and bring your wonderful questions, there you go. That's all you need. Guys, make sure you're checking out PackersNews.com for lots of coverage. Make sure you're following us on social media too, because we have lots of good updates there. As Ryan mentioned, sometimes I'll post some sleuthing videos and clips of things.
She got it today.
Of things that go on at practice, like Davante Adams on a stationary bike. That's the stuff I know that people really want to see for some reason. But anyway.
But you do, and it's true.
Yes,
and she's got it.
It's important, yes. So make sure you're following all of us over on social media as well. Guys, have a great night, and we will see you.